to the cloud. And if it's okay with both of you, Sina, Mary, I'm going to start letting people in.
Go for it.
Excellent. Here we go. 65 people. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome. As you're getting settled, we're just going to say a few things that you need to know before we start this great session. Welcome back if you've been to other sessions, and welcome if this is your first session. This is PowerSkills 2021, as you know, and this is day 2. We still have 1 day to go. Now, one thing, if you've been to other sessions and you've enjoyed them, why don't you use your reaction on the bottom, this one, the party one, and tell us that you've enjoyed and appreciated PowerSkills so far. Amazing. Thank you. And I'm so thrilled. My name is Rosalia. I'm the manager at Career Advising and Transition Services. And I see that Emily, a wonderful teammate, is also here. Emily, you want to say hi?
Hi, welcome everyone.
Amazing. I don't know if I don't see any other. We're divided between 3 concurrent sessions, so I think it's Emily and I. But we get to rest for this session because we have an incredible facilitator with us, and we're lucky. So you will see right away, certainly within the first few seconds, that Mary Deller is a spark plug, that is, and she's going to enthusiastically lead this session. And we thank her very much for volunteering to do that. It is so appreciated and so necessary for PowerSkills to happen. So let me send it to Mary right now, and I wish you all a wonderful session.
Thank you so much, Rosalia. It is my pleasure to introduce Sina Foley today.
I'm sorry, could everyone please make sure they are muted? And if you're not muted, I'm going to go in and do that for you. Okay.
Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Sina Foley, CHRL. Sina is a certified human resources leader, and she's here with us today. She specializes in recruitment. She currently is working for an industry leader in the construction equipment rental industry, and she's responsible for full cycle recruitment across Canada and the United States. She's also focused on leadership development and employee relations. In 2019, Ms. Foley was nominated for a Woman in Leadership Award, and she also hosted her first panel event to empower women in 2020. It was called Women at Work. In addition, she also mentors new immigrants and helps them build their confidence and transition their international experience to the Canadian job market. Would you please join me in welcoming Ms. Sina Foley today? Thank you.
Wow, that's such a great intro. You're going to follow me wherever I need to be introduced because I sounded amazing. I've done all those things. Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to start with a presentation, very brief, but I really want to encourage as many of you to participate. So let's cross our fingers that technology works, and you know, we should be doing well here. Okay, and let's get me over here. Okay. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 sec here. Mary, can you see and maybe walk me through what I'm doing wrong?
Yeah, so at the bottom there on the right-hand side of your screen, you should be able to maximize, Sina, so we can see, or you can go into your slideshow.
This.
There you go. And you can go up into the slideshow. I don't think I can do it for you, but you can go up in the slideshow here.
Oops.
and you should be able to go to maximize the view.
Tina, can I suggest something? Can you stop
Go.
sharing for a moment? Then you can start again. Make sure you start.
Okay.
Go on slide view before you start sharing.
Ooh, okay, I got it.
Presentation mode before you start sharing. And after that, you can start sharing.
Okay, I love it. Thank you. Teamwork makes the dream work. Let me see if this works. Are we there? Are we good?
We are. Perfect.
Thank you so much, guys. Like Mary did a great introduction, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why I wanted to do this session for PowerSkills this year. And so many people across the world message me for a job, to move to Canada, to change industries, and a lot of great messages. And I'm so happy to meet so many great candidates. But I find that there's some common mistakes I'm seeing people go through, and I really want to chat with you about that so you can tweak a couple of your approach so we can, make things a little bit better for you. So the first thing is this session is interactive. It's important that you're open to learn.
Sorry, Sina, we've lost your mic now.
Am I back up?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's really important that we all have respect for each other's opinions. No question is a bad question. Please participate and ask questions. This is for your value and your benefit. So the first thing I wanted you to think about is the type of friend you are. And if I think about your personal, sorry? Okay, and if I think about your personal relationships, are you the type of person that only calls your friend when you need something? Are you the type of friend that says, hey, I need to borrow $100? Or, hey, I'm moving this weekend and you got to help me. And that's the only time you call someone is when you need something? Chances are no. Chances are you have a very two-sided relationship with your personal friends. You're there for them. They're there for you. You're interested in their lives as much as they're interested in your lives. And I'd love for you to think about extending that type of relationship to business relationships when you're networking. So types of the messages that I receive here will include, thanks for connecting. I see you're a recruiter. I'm in whatever city and I'm looking for this type of role. If you've got that opening, let me know. Some people will just message me and say, thanks for accepting my request. Others will say, dear sir, I'm looking for this in Canada. I mean, I hope I'm not looking like a sir, but it's just the notion of a copy paste type of templated message that's going out to everybody. Hi, Sina, I want to work in Toronto with a spelling mistake. And please forward my profile for any position in your network. And what's really important is paying attention to who you're reaching out to. So we've got some questions that I'd love for you to think about when you are networking. Why do you want to meet this? Who is this person? One of the first things that you can find out about someone is their name, where they work, and what they do. And especially on LinkedIn, there's so much information on someone's profile that's don't just stop at their title. You can see what company they work for, what their job title is, what industries they've worked out throughout their career. And then from there, you can understand who it is that you're going to ask or reach out to and then grow from there. So it's going to take some homework, but if you're really interested in building a relationship, knowing your audience is key. I want you to think about why do I want to reach out to this person? I understand that many times it's job seekers. I need a job, Sina. That's why I'm doing this. But Networking has to do with building relationships. You can share best practices. You might get a mentor throughout your career. So it's not just this one-time interaction of, hey, this is what I need. I'm going to get what I need and drop this person after I get it. So do we have something in common? Do we work in the same industry? Are you interested in joining, my employer? Are you interested in learning about what my employer does? Or you've transitioned from, for myself, I've moved from telecommunications to the construction sector. How did I do that? If you want to ask questions because you're thinking of making a change, then you can get some really great advice from someone who's already been there. So learning from other people, it's really, really key. And thinking about what you get to add to the relationship is equally important. So that leads me to, what do you bring to this relationship? Just like when we thought about our personal friendships, it's a two-way street. We're supporting them, they're supporting us. We're genuinely interested in what's going on in their lives. And the same goes for networking. So when you're messaging somebody or reaching out to somebody, it's not just about, hey, I need a job. Here's my resume, get me this, connect me with this person. We really, this is where when I talk to candidates, they get frustrated because nobody gets back to them. But maybe if it's not working, it's time to look at how we change that so we can yield some better results. And then what do you want from this person you're reaching out to? What is the call to action? So we have to think about sometimes when people say, thank you so much for connecting with me. And that's the whole message. It's like, that is really nice, but do you want to further that other than just gather more people in your network? Is there a purpose to your network? And do you want to continue the conversation, or was it, oh, Sina, I reached out to you, you clicked add on LinkedIn, thanks very much, and that's it. For it to be really effective and can last many, many years, it really has to have more than that initial, okay, great, thanks very much, bye. So think about that in sales even, right? You don't just introduce yourself to a customer and then leave. There's a purpose to that relationship that you want to get to the next level. And following up, right? So that's going to be really important. We've had this initial discussion, and how can I reach back out again? So one of my really great messages that I received from somebody was, they're in HR and they're in school, and they reached out to me to ask me, what do I think about HR in the business world? They're currently in school, they're learning about this and organizational development, change management, and how do I really see that playing into organizations, and what advice do I have? Great networking opportunity for them to learn. And I'm more likely, and I did respond, because it was a great conversation, an intellectual conversation about a shared interest. They're in HR or learning to be in HR, I'm in HR. So it was a great opportunity for us to just have this great dialogue and then build from there, versus all the message I get that says, hey, pass my resume on to your hiring managers or your clients, not realizing that I work in the construction sector, or I'm not an agency recruiter. I am working for a corporation and I hire specifically for that corporation. I have many people that reach out to me and say, are you guys hiring? You could look at my profile, see where I work, and find that information on our career site. And so I think really what is the extension of beyond job seekers is your ability to fact find, your efforts that you're going to put into building strong relationships, whether that's clients, whether that's colleagues, whether that's professionals in an industry. It's going to take time. So when we look at this quote, behind every successful person, there are many successful relationships. It's because throughout the course of someone's career, you're building those relationships, you're learning from other people, you're networking, you're working in different industries, and that all helps you grow and be better. So when you think about, well, I just reach out to recruiters because I need a job, there's opportunities to reach out to business leaders. Actually, I'm gonna, let me just close out of this. So there's opportunities to reach out to business leaders to learn from them, how they've grown their career, what advice do they have for candidates that are starting out? What are some key things that they can look for when they're starting their job search? What are strategies that, how did their company deal with COVID? What do they think about the importance of corporate culture? I'm changing industries. What was their biggest obstacle when they did that? And reaching out to people when you don't necessarily just need something for yourself, that handout, that friend that's calling only when I want something. It'll be so much more effective when you build a genuine connection. And that comes over time. So that's not a one-time interaction. And I think that the other thing to think about is when you're networking, that's something that you are ready for, that you reach out to people, you put yourself out there. Maybe they don't respond the way that you want. Maybe they don't respond at all. Maybe they're not willing to give you that, 5-10 minute coffee chat, virtual coffee chat. And that's okay. And that doesn't mean that you give up or you stop when you hit a roadblock, because people are busy. People might not know how to network with you. Maybe they're as nervous or more nervous than you about networking. So you just really, and not everybody's online using LinkedIn. Some people I know in my company, for instance, that have been there for a very long time, think of LinkedIn as, why I'm not on that. I'm not looking for a job. So they might have a profile, but they're not really active. They've kind of created this and forget their login and never use it. So does that mean that they don't want to help? Well, no, but they're just not thinking of it, or this isn't, at the forefront of their brain or their mind, or maybe they've lost their jobs and they've been restructured out. COVID's been tough on a lot of people, but they haven't updated their LinkedIn. So when you reach those roadblocks and you're not getting what you want from that relationship, however new or seasoned it is, that's okay. There are still going to be a lot of people out there that want to support you and help you grow in your careers. And for myself, I've been doing that, I think, specifically to new immigrants. I've been doing that for the last year and a half. And it's not that prior to that, I never wanted to do it. I just didn't have the right connections to kind of lead me down this path so I can be better connected. So lots of people want to help. Lots of people are there for you. But I think when it comes to networking, you've got to have, a clear direction of who you're meeting. Why do you want to connect with them? What do you bring to the table? And how much are you going to nurture this relationship as much as you want it to be nurtured by the other person? So because this was an interactive webinar, I'm hoping that you guys have questions and that I can help guide you through some of the challenges that you go through with networking.
I'm going to, thank you so much, Sina. Wow, this was a lot of information, a lot of key points. We will turn it over to questions. I think the best way to proceed is if you could raise your hand using the reaction button. I will try to also watch on the screen. Sometimes it's difficult to do so, but if you can raise your hand using the reaction button, otherwise we'll take your first question. Sina, we're going to go to Lolita right now for your first question, please. Lolita, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you, Sina, again.
Of course.
I was honestly trying to connect with you this afternoon, but I stopped to wait for this webinar. So I'll be sending you a message today, just as an example to see what message you get. Is it appropriate what you told me when I'm trying to connect to the people? So I'll come to know. And I do agree it's a two-way relationship. But now, say, as a possible new immigrant, sometimes you are more on the needy side to connect with people and not to give much in the beginning. Is it still taken as okay in the when I'm not sure right now what I can also give in return? As you said, it's gonna take time. Do people still consider there whether it's a recruiter or somebody, or they say, oh, it's everybody just connecting me for the jobs? Because I definitely didn't put it across just as a looking for a job, as a new immigrant. So how open are people to give time to other people and give to connect back and build a relationship?
So great question. Thank you. I know it's it's one of many people. So I can't really say that everybody's open to everything, right? Like, we're all humans. I'm not going to be able to tell you 100% or 73% of people would be. You know what? I think sometimes you have to look at how active are they online, right? Do they have 20 connections, or do they have a lot more? That might indicate that they're here more often on LinkedIn. And I think you do have something to offer. Something to offer doesn't mean just an experience, or just because you're looking for work, don't downplay what you bring to the table. My example, somebody that I thought did a great job of reaching out to me is a student. I don't know if it's working or not. And they weren't reaching out because they needed a job. They were reaching out because they wanted to know about best practices and some real career experience. So I felt that they were equally, worthy. If you're not feeling like you can bring something to the table, we're all worthy. But that question meant a lot to me from that person, and we started engaging. And then she responded back, and a few more messages back and forth. Now, thinking about, I'm guessing that fast forward, where are we, January? Let's say she graduates in April, and then she starts needing help for a job. I'm gonna probably go out of my way to help a little more because we've established a connection that seems pretty genuine and didn't start with, hey, I need a job.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to remind everybody is you still have things to bring to the table. Even if you wanted to have a discussion about Canadian culture, if you wanted to have a discussion about, corporate culture, diversity and inclusion, some hot button topics right now, right? If you wanted to have those topics of conversation, then it doesn't matter what your situation is now. It's still a two-way street. It's an intellectual conversation, and that's what networking is. Networking isn't just, I need a job, get me a job.
Yes.
We think about that way in online and LinkedIn, but you think about, there's so many articles, there's so many podcasts shared, there's so much information on LinkedIn, there's groups you can join. So it isn't just about building a connection to get what you want, right? There's lots, I'm not looking for a job and I'm on LinkedIn. So there's things that I'm getting from LinkedIn beyond just meeting candidates. So don't downplay what you bring to the table, Lolita. You have a lot to bring.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Lolita and Sina. I have to say that there was lots of people who were supportive, and I know of the question. So Maria liked that question as well in the chat. So thank you for that question, Lolita, and the answer. I think that response was fantastic. I'm going to go over to Avneet, and then I'll return to the chat for some questions from the chat. Avneet Kaur, would you please go ahead with your question?
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise, Sina. I have been following your talks on other platforms. And let me tell you, we're highly inspired by your achievements and the way you are mentoring job seekers, especially the new immigrants that you just mentioned. And I have been implementing your advice in my career, and they are actually very helpful. So thank you so much for that. So my the question for you is that if someone reach out to a recruiter after researching about the organization, about the recruiter's profile, as you mentioned, but they do not get any response from the recruiter, then in how much time one should wait to send a follow-up message? And is there a specific approach to that a follow-up message, keeping in mind that it doesn't look too pushy to the recruiter, because this is something I come across. And once I reach out to the recruiter, I read out about their organization, about their profile, and I do my complete thorough research. But at times you don't get a response from them. So I'm not sure if in case I should follow up with them in a week's time, or like if my approach is different, or if I'm doing something wrong.
Okay, thanks, Evneet. Listen, I appreciate you trying to follow my advice, and if it's adding value, then great. Appreciate that feedback. I think, you got to think about, why am I reaching out to that recruiter? Have I applied online for a current opening? And if I did, then I would follow up in about a week. And then if it's just because I'm interested in that organization and I want to learn more and I want to be considered for future opportunities, then I would also really think about connecting and trying to build your network with the business. So you can learn about an organization from sales directors, account managers, VPs, like marketing professionals, IT managers. Anyone could give you that information, and that would be a really great way to build your network, to get some kind of real tea on what the organization's like, right? You can, people that are having a different perspective than maybe recruiters that are always sort of having to sort of sell the greatness of their opportunities, right? So I think maybe branching out into reaching out to other people will give you some good insight into an organization. But if somebody doesn't respond, and listen, I am very guilty of this as well, because I just get overloaded with so many messages in my inbox in LinkedIn. Not even to mention that I've got an ATS and candidates that I've got to review that have applied to my jobs, and, dealing with hiring managers and whatnot. So, I apologize. It's probably not a great excuse, but people are just really busy. And sometimes people don't use LinkedIn as often as you use LinkedIn. So maybe they haven't seen your message. So I would say in about a week, follow up, and, I understand you're really busy. I really appreciate your time. I just wanted to follow up and wondering if, we, blah, 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 whatever your question was. But just remembering, everybody's a person and everyone's doing their best, and managers are getting back to us as soon as they can. We're getting back to you guys as soon as we can. And just kind of remembering that, like I said, there's another person on the other end of that computer. There's another person at the end of that phone call that are going through whatever they're going through. So I suggest a week, and then see from there.
Okay, thank you so much, Sina. I will surely implement it, and let's see if in case I get results in future. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sina and Evneet. And it was another question that very similar, that we had a very similar question in terms of follow-up from Marina in the chat. So I think we covered off that question. The next question I'd like to go to in the chat, Sina, is actually about starting a new business. So I'll read, as a starter of a new business, from Christine writes, what advice do you give in terms of networking for those entrepreneurs that are joining us here today, those budding entrepreneurs, Sina, starting a new business?
I mean, I think the approach is still similar in the sense that it should be a genuine connection, right? And understanding who you're connecting with and why. I would say that, as much as you're reaching out to people, especially I'm thinking LinkedIn wise, I would reach out to groups, right? Support groups, business groups, entrepreneur groups, local businesses in an area, Facebook groups. You'll find a lot of support from that alone. I'm in a group for my area and on Facebook, and people always share best practices, new stores, small businesses are opening up. There's just, because you don't always know, we're in a lockdown, right, in Toronto. So it's a matter of like, that's where I'm gonna maybe order my next meal from. I'll get my takeout from there. I've never heard about them before. So sort of that buzz happens when you're utilizing online. I think, the power of social media can be really strong for new businesses. And I think building that, a little bit of that hype, and knowing who you want to connect with and and why. So not really just about as many people as possible, because if it just kind of falls flat, then does that really help you? But if it's about, women in business, or, the food industry, or whatever your business is, and then trying to promote from there. So I think it's still knowing your audience and promotion online as much as possible, and leveraging groups, right? And even connecting with other business leaders or people that have previously created their own businesses that are on LinkedIn, and say, hey, how did you struggle? Like, did you have struggles and how did you get through it? Or here's something I'm coming across this roadblock. Do you have any advice for me? And I think that's really coming across as sharing best practices, professional to professional, which is really what you want to do with networking.
Thank you so much, Sina. And the question in the chat. I also want to remind everyone, please, to raise your hand if you have a question, and if you would mind lowering your hand after you have had your question answered. We're going to go to Paul now in the chat, Sina, and he has asking about we saw in your presentation, formal part of your presentation, some things in terms of a couple of comments that had been sent to you with respect to typos and things, but things that are different. And Paul would like to know, is there something that makes a resume stand out? And what about using templates? So template resumes, and from your perspective, is there something that helps a resume to stand out in that sea that you mentioned that you might be receiving of all these resumes? Can you offer some advice to Paul and everyone, please, on that topic?
Thanks. So Paul, great question. I think the most important thing, template, sure, that's fine. I wouldn't necessarily have a bunch of graphs and charts and images like that, because sometimes in our applicant tracking system, or ATS, when you apply online for jobs, that doesn't always translate well, the images and whatnot. I think the most important thing about your resume is the content, and really having an achievement, accomplishment-based resume. And the reason I say that is because qualifications alone don't get people hired. It's got to be, especially because, listen, think about when you graduate from school, and let's say there's 60 graduates, all coming from the same program, all with the same knowledge. So what's going to stand out if it's just qualifications? You can't hire all 60 of them. So we really want to think about what makes you stand out. So the very obvious example that I give is myself. I'm a recruiter. So if my job title is recruiter, then I don't have to say opened recs, interviewed candidates, scheduled interviews, typed offer letters, hired people. We got that from my job title. There's some implications of what I do based on what my title is. So now it's really about me kind of stating some of my key KPIs and metrics. What have I accomplished that have stood out for me? What is my time to fill? Things like that I'm measured against on what success means. What have I done that made me stand out in my role? And you want to think, and okay, I'll give you a couple of things. Maybe not more than 2 pages long is kind of my rule of thumb. And I think you have to think of, a hiring manager has a problem, right? They've got this opening because there's a gap on their team. I want you to think about your resume being able to demonstrate how you can fill that gap, how you can solve that problem for the manager. And so what some people will say, Sina, that's so much work. And I mean, do I have to do like keywords and change my resume every single time? Listen, if this is not worth your effort, I don't know what is when you're looking for a job, because it's got to be more important to you than anyone else. More important not to the recruiter, not to the hiring manager, to you. You're responsible for your own career. So I think really it's not just about which template looks the best, which is the go-to. It's really going to be about demonstrating your key strengths to a hiring manager or to the audience, to showcase how you've really been successful in your past, and then how you can take that success and add value going forward. So, some advice that I give people when they're working on their resume is show your resume to somebody, not your best friend, not your mom. She'll always tell you you're amazing, but really send your resume to somebody that you trust and say, what do you think of my resume? And what do you think my strengths are based on this resume? And let's see what that fresh set of eyes gets from your profile. And does that align with what your intention is when you're creating your resume? So that's what I would think about: accomplishment-based, achievement-based resume. Details of your stats. Don't just say, I did really well in sales. What were your numbers? Like, back that up. So when you back it up, there's, assumed credibility to what you're saying.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think Bussy, I think she's replied to the question about ensuring those connections are ongoing. We've got a question from Nora, and then we'll go to the hands. Nora's asking about, and she thanks you for your insights and would like to know about sort of that movement from that informational type interview into creating something more. So asking for an informational type interview, turning those interviews into referrals, or turning that into an actual interview. Is there any way for that to happen, and keeping the strong connections over time? So how do we move from those informational interviews we've requested?
Well, it takes two, right, to get to move it forward. So the other person has to want to do that too. I think an informational, when I think about someone wanting an informational interview with me, and my hiring managers, I'm thinking, okay, what happens next? Okay, I told them about the company and we had this great chat for 20 minutes, but now do I have to get them into the company? Like, what does that mean? So sometimes people get a little bit standoffish on how to get it to the next level with this pressure of what do they expect from me now? So I think it comes from a genuine connection. Like, when you meet some people and they're gonna kind of stay in the acquaintance box, and then some are gonna really transition into, we have a real connection. I can really see us be friends here. So you're kind of reading your audience there. We can't really force relationships. We can't really force business relationships or personal relationships. So I think it's really seeing that availability. And you can talk about that if you have a really great informational interview. You can say, well, how can we move forward? Are you interested? Would it be okay if I reach out again and we talk a little bit further? Because let me do my research. Let me take back some of the information, digest that. And then if I come back to you and I'm really, I've really take the time to reflect, and then go back and say, is it okay if I come back to you and talk further? Because I'm actually really now interested in, following up on what we talked about, or getting into your industry, or getting into your organization. And what does that look like? And what do you think the best next steps look like? And that person might simply say, hey, listen, I can put in a word for you with HR and apply online. And that's where it goes, because that's what they're willing to do. And we respect what people are willing to do in their comfort levels, and then maybe sometimes even the boundaries of their roles and what they can and can't do. But it's really difficult to force that. The right people will make it work when it makes sense and it's the right timing. Sorry, there was a part 2 to that question, Mary. What was that again?
I had, sorry about that. Yeah, just also in terms of, they were asking, so Nora was also asking, I think you've answered though, keeping those connections over times, or how to turn maybe something into an actual interview. And I think you've covered that part off as well already, Sina, in your response.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that's good. We've got so many questions to get to. We'll try to keep it moving forward.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
One of the comments too, I think, that had been made, and you can tell from Sina's approach as well, is that, courtesy is so important. Being polite. People have been mentioning a little bit about that in the chat too, when you're reaching out and building these relationships as well. So, and you can tell from Sina's approach. We're going to go to Carmen now. Carmen has a question. Her hand is raised. Please go ahead, Carmen.
Hi, thank you, Mary. Hi, Sina. Nice to meet you. And I really appreciate your advice about courtesy, about it being a two-way. I've been guilty about asking, although I'm a bit shy, so I tend to connect and then I don't follow through.
That's okay.
Now, I have a quick question. I'm currently on a sabbatical. So I've worked for over 20 years in you know, in my industry, in my wherever I'm skilled. Went through the ranks, but I really needed a sabbatical for many reasons. So I took one. It's been 2 years almost. While I've been away from work, I started an unrelated business, but I do have a passion for business. So I wanted to try having my own business. Now I'm wanting to go back to work. And so the question is, what if you were the hiring manager, what, and there's this underlying myth that it's easier to get work when you're working than when you're not. So what could make me stand out as a person who's has a business but has been out of corporate for a couple of years? How can I stand out when you compare my resume versus a person that is working currently for another corporation?
Mm-hmm.
Is it through a cover letter? Is it through, I guess, what could I do for you to consider me?
So I would say the first thing, and thank you, Carmen, is to believe that what you've done is fantastic. I feel you downplaying, like, oh, when I started this business, I've never started a business. That sounds incredibly daunting. I mean, kudos to you for doing that. So I want you to take that leverage of being a risk taker, right? And that you have followed your dreams. I'm sure you didn't just wake up one morning and go, okay, I just clicked a button and now I own a business. I'm sure there was lots of planning and organization, right? And that you had to go through that paperwork, whatever. But, you know, basically you project managed your dream into coming into reality. So it's being able to take that message, that narrative, and apply it into whatever you're now looking to transition back to corporate. So for yourself, I think anytime you need to pivot is a little bit harder, and I understand that. So you've got, yes, I would say do a cover letter, but more importantly, I would really try and get the ear of the business leaders in the organizations you want to target to say, hey, I've done this. This was a really great adventure I went on. And then I'd really like to take that experience and now apply it to corporate. So maybe you didn't go get your MBA, but you sure did go and learn a bunch of stuff for the last 3 years that applies to a corporation. So I think your biggest obstacle, Carmen, is to change your narrative. You need to give yourself way more credit. And listen, do we all get networking perfectly? No. You know what? I bet there's a hiring manager that's even more nervous about networking than you are. So, you know, remembering we're all people going through this, but you got to change your narrative to remind yourself that you've got a ton of great experience from the last 3 years to bring to a corporation. And so when you reach out and sell it like that, I don't think it would be hard to get to quote unquote the top of the list.
Thank you very much. That's great.
You're welcome.
And wow, what an inspirational moment here. We'll take and Carmen, I just want to thank you, Sina, for that. Carmen, I hope you noticed. You may not have noticed, but you were getting some clapping as well.
Oh.
There were some clapping reactions coming across the screen in support of what Sina was saying to you as well about your incredible journey you took yourself on in the last 2 years. Can we keep building on that, Sina, with a comment, with a question we have in the chat from Ruth, and she wants to address a work gap. So how do we address that work gap you know, if there's been a pause in some way to raise children in her case? The whole time I'm muted. I'm so sorry. So I was saying, Carmen, oh my gosh, so sorry.
You said this really brilliant thing and then you went silent.
I know, and then I go mute. So yeah, so I was just saying, Carmen, you got some positive reactions and clapping, and I wanted to build on that with a question from Ruth in the chat. Ruth would like to know about addressing work gaps. So a gap perhaps to raise children, a gap and how to address that maybe on LinkedIn or a resume or in a networking opportunity. How do we address a gap in the time that someone has taken off to work to do something else, such as race children?
So, and I'm just going to do one quick thing about Carmen. Your whole body language changed from before you answered your question to where you are now. So you've got this in you. You just got to believe in yourself. Okay, back to our question, gaps. You know what? I think that coming out of 2020, everyone's going to have a gap on their resume at some point. If you've been furloughed or laid off, this is the year where many people will have a gap. And regardless of what your career path is and the gap and why they're there, the most important thing is you have to just be able to own that and tell your story. I don't really care why people leave companies on paper. I care about what you're going to tell me. Why did you leave? Oh, because something out there. Like, just answer your questions. It's, you know why you made your life decisions, and you need to be proud of them. So if you took a moment, if you have a gap in your resume because, you know, COVID, laid off, whatever, normal. And I think what's going to happen for all the people that have gaps, not because of COVID, you're going to get slotted into being considered anyways, because we're not going to be screening out people with gaps. At least good recruiters and good managers won't. You know, just remembering that everyone has a story, and that's okay. And you know what? Listen, you're not the only person that took time off to raise a family. Loads of candidates have done it, and loads of women in particular. So I think really resonating with those companies that are big on diversity and inclusion and promoting women in their organizations aren't going to look at that badly. But just remembering it's not as daunting as you think it is, because many women take time to raise their kids and then want to get back into the workforce. Just depends on like how, you know, what kind of jobs and what they're looking for. It's really competitive. So I'm not going to say it's going to be easy peasy, but it's not really easy peasy for any candidates right now. So be able to speak to that, have a cover letter, and reach out to people with kind of leading with that. You know, you don't have to kind of downplay it like, oh my gosh, I got this break and let me just talk about what I did 5 years ago. No, you know, address it and lead with it and be proud of it, because that was a choice you made and you still learned a lot and improved, and it'll make you a better candidate because of it.
Thank you so much, Sina. What a good answer. I'm sure applies to a lot of people here. I want to sort of, we've got questions from Ash, Fatu, and Andre that all focus in and around the cover letter and the resume again, but just in terms of the cover letter, as a recruiter, they'd like to know from your perspective, which you read first. So they're putting you on the spot with some questions here. Which you read first? We're flipping it back to you, Sina. And what could they do to spark the recruiter or manager's curiosity to move from a cover letter to actually going through the next steps, going through the resume, etc. So first question is, what do you read first? And what sparks your interest?
I feel like I'm going to get in trouble, but I don't like cover letters and I don't really read them. Oh God, I'm so sorry, guys. You know what sparks me to read a cover letter is when I look at the resume and I said, they're really pivoting, or there's something really, okay, what does that mean? Let me go to a cover letter and see what their story is all about. And the only reason I say that is because, you know, I get so many resumes every day in my job, in my applicant tracking system. And it's just click heavy, right? Just to click somewhere else to read that every single time. We used to say, and you know, it can take 30 seconds or less to look at a resume, right? So if I have to read through 10 pages of a resume and then have to click and read 3 pages of a cover letter, whoo, I ran out of time. It's 5 o'clock already, I gotta go. So I think we really, you know, I think having a cover letter is important. I'm just one recruiter. There are many, many recruiters that have a different view of this, right? So I think having your cover letter, and the cover letter that says, to whom it may concern, excuse me, I'm applying for job title ABC that I saw on job posting 123, job board 123, and I'm a good hard worker, team player, and great with customers. I look forward to hearing from you. Here's my what am I getting out of that? That's a template. That means nothing to me. And anytime you do something so generic that you just copy, paste in your mentality, is going to fall flat. And we know it. And we don't care. And there's no value. And I'd be mad that I wasted 10 seconds reading that. But if you were to tell me a little bit about why you're aligned with this organization, what's important to you, what I've usually said to people that I kind of liked in cover letters and that I've kind of coached people with is find some commonality of what matters to the organization, right? So sort of their vision, look at their mission, look at their, do they care about the environment or whatever, and see if that really aligns with you and find that ground. And then, and then outline what your strengths are and what you really want me to know. So if you have international experience, but, I've been working abroad, I've worked with different, something that you want to really showcase that brings it all back together is really key. For me, it's the opposite, right? I start with the resume and then I go to the cover letter to go, what's the story here? So I want a story in the cover letter. I don't want the thank you for job posting ABC on, LinkedIn and blah, 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 blah. Give me something real that I get to get a sense of who you are. And that kind of leads back to networking, right? It has to be genuine. Like, who are you? We're getting to know each other. So can I get a semblance of who you are beyond your qualifications? Because I'm just assuming you're qualified. You applied for the job.
Thank you so much, Sina. We're going to go to, we have time for one more question. We're going to have to limit your time, Sina, before we do a wrap up today. Balaji, would you go ahead and ask your question? Balaji has a question, his hand up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary, and thank you, Sina. I'm going to be quick. This is a follow-up question on career gap. For somebody like me who moved from a country, who is new in Canada and trying to get a job, going to like 1 year now, and how do I present that to a recruiter or HR person? How do I tell my story? I just don't want to tell them I've been trying to get a job, but it's not possible. So how do I tell the story, please?
But your story is not that you've been trying to get a job. Everybody's got the same story as a candidate, right? So, what is your story as in what's your background? In terms of I have like 10 years of experience back in, don't say it like this, but back home. And, what I've done and what I'm really aligned with is blah, 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 blah. I'm getting, I'm really excited to transition to the Canadian market. Something like that is your story, right? But I would really pay attention to, again, organizations that are really focused on diversity and inclusion. So if they really actually are, then your international experience is something that they're going to value. I know that there's a catch-22 of needing Canadian experience, and how do you get Canadian experience if you don't have it, but then people always need it, so how will they ever get it? But I think it's really going to be remembering that you're not a job seeker. That is your situation. You are a person. You are a professional. You have a load of experience or education that you bring to the table. So your story is your story, and talking about what your experience is what you want to get there. But if you're feeling like that roadblock and people aren't listening, then you've got to move away from just reaching out to recruiters or applying online and start networking and joining groups on LinkedIn and participating and posting and commenting and engaging so that you can, interact with the people that will see the value of what you bring with your international experience. Just like sped through that answer. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Balaji, for your question, and Sina. I think people would love to have you spend the afternoon with them, or perhaps sit on their shoulders when they have to make these difficult calls and interviews. But you can think about some of these nuggets, and Sina has presented with us today about, in terms of networking and thinking about the hot topics that you can raise and developing these relationships. I think we had a wonderful moment of truth when Carmen and Sina shared that was such a wonderful experience that we had, and some terrific comments on diversity and inclusion. It's not hard to understand why Sina Foley was nominated for a Women in Leadership Award. I want to thank her so much. Sina, can you give us a final, listen, there's a lot of questions we didn't get to, but a final comment for us or words of wisdom as we end off here today? Flip it back to you.
I would say that you got to just keep going. You're going to get jobs. Everybody, it's a hard time for everybody, right? And you got to know that you're not in it alone. There are other people that are going through this, and you've got to build your support in that sense of networking, right? And getting support from each other. And when you do get hired, please pay it forward. Please help other people. I think just remembering your narrative. How do you solve a problem for a hiring manager? And how do you be an authentic participant when it comes to networking? So it's not just about what you need from somebody, but a two-way relationship to build upon that goes much more beyond just getting a job.
Thank you so much, Sina. Thank you so much. Please look out. Thank you everyone also who attended today. Please look out for your emails. We're going to be sending out a survey on this session and all the PowerSkills sessions that maybe you've enjoyed yesterday and today and tomorrow. If there were some nuggets in here today that you were not taking notes, I know I've taken pages of notes here as well. The session was recorded, so you can go back as well. Stay tuned for the rest of the sessions also that are on the schedule. And I think Rosalia can hopefully insert that into the chat. And if you enjoyed this event, we're happy to continue to doing these types of events. We want you to support the School of Continuing Studies and other professional development opportunities. So please go on the main website and click donate. And thank you again, Sina, and everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Mary, for a stellar job in facilitating. Much
Thank you, Mary.
appreciated. Enjoy the rest of the day, everyone.
Pleasure. Bye.